recording now. So this is IT201, Tuesday, 1 p.m. The information I cover here in this section is applicable to all the classes. So I teach 3 sections usually of IT201. So I will post this video up. I will not record for other classes. I think that first part that was just talked about is interesting to cover again. So this IT201 is Introduction to Programming, Introduction to User Experience, Introduction to Interaction Design for the average IT undergraduate student. Usually when you take a 200 level class, it's in your sophomore, maybe your junior year. Although we get a lot of transfers from other degrees and other colleges, so you might be in a later year, you might be an adult student. But we are to approach the ideas of software design and development for an average IT student who might be in networking or cybersecurity, some type of technical field where programming is auxiliary or secondary, and you might not have the job profession of software engineer or programmer. But let me tell you, even networking jobs and security jobs, you will be scripting. You will be interfacing with code, either through some type of web portals or interfacing with servers with on a web development situation, or on an operating situation in like Linux or something like this. So you do need to get comfortable to some extent with programming. So in this class, we try to do it in a fun way where we're going to build a painting app in the game engine called Unity using C# programming language. You've probably had an intro CS class, maybe 100 or 101 or 110 or what have you, with Python or Java or JavaScript. And usually what happens is when you touch base with programming in a language or two, you're able to start to understand the concepts, but the programming concepts you can only identify or work with through the programming language. You haven't generalized the ideas yet. So that's why we use C# in this class, because Unity is used in our game development program and our up-and-coming AR/VR program. And C# is similar to Java, and that's object-oriented, it's high-level, it's approachable of the computer languages. And we're just hitting on the introductory concepts, stuff like variables and classes and objects and methods. And it's not like a hardcore programming course. And in fact, I'm doing everything first, and you're just following along with me. So it's a project-oriented class. We will be working in a diagramming tool to understand how to draw diagrams to express your software ideas before you actually think about how you're going to design your software and how to write the code for the software. So we use diagramming tools, we talk about user flows, we talk about features, we talk about user interfaces, and user experience. And then the course is primarily in the Unity game engine, which is a development environment that has a visual interface that's useful for developing 2D or 3D interactive multimedia projects. It's so the 2 main game engines are Unity and Unreal, and anything you could do here, you could do with web libraries as well. And so a lot of the ideas that are here about the user interface and graphics and animation, a lot of it's been borrowed from web development, just pushed into the 3D environment. But we won't be focusing heavily on 3D concepts. So if I just open up Let me see. So this is where we used to get to in the class at the 4 sprints. In the application will look something like this. So let me, it's meant for 16:9 resolution. So on the left here, we have a user interface panel that allows us to set all different attributes of our program. And then I can click and actually paint, which is the main feature of the program. In this case, we're painting in 3D, but the camera doesn't move. So it's like a fixed location. It's like in 2D. And then here we have our UI, which is in 2D. So this is at the end of 4 sprints. That's fine. If you're late, I'm recording this. And we work in a sprint fashion because not only I'm trying to get you used to how the industry works, but I'm trying to break down the class into small additional parts, nice module, and we can, it used to be you had to build the project with me and submit it, but now you have to learn the concepts by building the project with me through the lectures, then you just take a multiple choice quiz. So at the end of sprint 1, it looks like this, a much simpler user interface. And when you're painting, it's a much simpler, things aren't animating, the shapes are much simpler, and you have less options, less parameters you can change in your interface. That changes how your code is working. So the user changes this, and notice how the program is functioning differently. We're running different code. All right, so this is sprint 1. I have to check, I think it's about 3 weeks, but I'll go over the actual details when I go back into Canvas. This is sprint 2. The interface, the user interface is getting a little bit more complex, a little bit more cleaned up, more options are exposed. The first one, your paint stroke is a little different. The shapes, the objects grow and shrink based on the speed of the mouse. There's a little bit more fancy, a little bit more advanced with the rendering. And we have some more options, and we have a clock exposed that we can change the time of day. But notice not everything is great. Notice how I'm like painting objects as I'm clicking on the clock. So the reason that we work in this way is that we start with simple ideas. We start to think about the user. We diagram how our ideas may work as a piece of software, and then we start to develop features. But as features grow in complexity, bugs are introduced, our new things are come up as a developer that you haven't even thought of. In this case, I want to interface with this clock, but I'm drawing stuff as I do that. So then I move on to sprint 3. The interface gets a little bit cleaner. We have some new objects that we're painting, and I fix up some old issues. In this case, there's some painting happening. Maybe this gets fixed in sprint 4, but in most of the cases here, as I'm working with this, it's because I'm cutting off. Yeah, so I tried one technique where I like cut off the painted objects after a certain distance, and that kind of solved it. Then in sprint 4, I moved to another technique, yeah, where like the whole clock isn't you're actually interfacing with the user interface or with the world to enable the primary feature, in this case, painting. All right, so I'm building this. Here's the visual part of the development environment, and you're going to learn everything. Everything's from scratch. You're new to programming, that's fine. You're new to Unity, that's fine. You're new to C#, that's fine. It's just meant to expose you to software design and development at an introductory level with using something fun, in this case, game engine. And I'm just going to double click one of these scripts and just open up what the code looks like. In the meantime, while this is opening, if anyone has questions, feel free to ask.
So this program is more of scripting, not creating, right?
What do you mean?
So are we creating from the ground up the program? Or are we scripting?
Yes.
So we get the.
So you're creating from the ground up this program, but Unity gives you a lot of support. So you never build software from scratch. There's a lot of tools and libraries that are already provided to you in whatever development environment. But we'll start from scratch, meaning we open up Unity, we create a new project, and we start to develop our assets and develop our code. But I'm not expecting you to create art from scratch or create entire like functioning pieces of code. This is as complex as it's going to get, and all of this is relying on anything that's green is referencing other code libraries from Unity that have been already developed for you.
I got a question. It might not be as relevant, but so I took CS 114. Coding, is it as hard as CS 114, or this is like easier in terms of coding?
I'm gonna say it's easier or on par. I mean, at most, you're gonna write. You don't even go this far into class. Maybe you write 300 lines of code over 3 months.
Okay, that sounds good.
It's very easy. It's very slow because most of these students, the reason you're in IT is you have a fear or a distaste of programming. So I can't go that fast, and I'm not having you develop very sophisticated things. Does that all make sense? Also, Sprint 4 is also cut from the class because it was too much material. The class was moving too fast, and Sprint 4 gets into just a little bit too complicated subjects. So in reality, you'll get to Sprint 3, which, yeah, I mean, there's like 2 other scripts that are involved in this, so maybe at most it's 500 lines of code. But all the code, I write it, and you just follow. Obviously, those who are more comfortable can explore more. There's no reason that you can't, if you already coming in and you're experienced, you've been taught this in high school, or you're a later age student, there's no reason that you can't use this class to explore and have fun and just push yourself. The point is, it's a point, you got to push yourself beyond your current understanding or comfort zone. Now, this class is built for somebody who has never been exposed or very little exposure to ideas of software design and development. That's why it's a slow class, and I've even removed the concepts of having to build and submit your project back to me. So it's just 5 multiple choice quizzes, and just because it's geared to be a slower class, because it's a sophomore level class, a lot of you will find this concept difficult because it's new to you, and that's okay. And the class is geared toward you. So yes, you will find this class difficult, but it is set up in such a way that if you spend your time with the work, that you'll do great. You'll do fine in class. So for example, we have 5 sections. All right. So I know this idea of we had 4 sprints or 3 sprints, and it's a project-based class. And in the videos, I'm going to say, well, you're working on this project and do this when you build this project. So because the students were required to wrap up and submit the project back. Now, to do good in class, you need to do the project with me. So think of it like paired programming. or like I'm taking the first steps and you follow behind me. And I broke the class up into 5 sections with the quizzes because each quiz then is worth 20% of your grade. And I tried to break up into more sections. So now we're talking about sections and sprints, and I know this idea is confusing. But I couldn't just have 3 quizzes, each worth like a third of your grade, because then the anxiety, the stresses too, the performance anxiety gets too high with students. So ultimately, this class is 5 sections with multiple choice quizzes based explicitly directly on the material that I'm talking about. I'm talking about user flow diagrams and the beginnings of Unity. That's exactly what this quiz is on. Down here, I start getting into more about the programming, more about user input, the ideas of physics, because we're creating objects. We're trying to figure out how far are they from the camera and things like this. And we talk about user interfaces. And that's exactly what the quiz is on here. And then section 3, I'm talking more about using code libraries, looking up documentation to help you understand what the code is doing. We talk about loops and switches, which are concepts in programming. We get a little bit more, dig a little bit deeper onto diagrams and user flows, and that's exactly what this is going to be on. And then section 4, we talk about building more complicated objects. As you saw, like there's clusters of geometry with different colors, and they're moving and they have animations. That's what they call prefabs or prefabricated objects. So you can save to disk. We'll get into all this later. And start thinking more about usability. Like we built a basic user interface. How do we talk about a better user experience? How do we talk about usability and so on? And that's what this quiz is on. And then section 5, these got cut. That's why they say optional. It's much shorter. Quiz 5 is like the only special one where quiz 5 is like part some new material and part is a review of the previous 4 quizzes. So it's kind of like a final quiz or a final exam. I don't call it a final exam because it's still worth as much as the others. And it's not at a set time. Notice how all the others are during class time. They're right at 1 to 2:20 on some date that the class is running, right? Now, quiz 5 is the only special one where the final exam week is really messy. It's really stressful for the students. The exams are all over the place. So I just open up this quiz to be available the entire week. Take it when you are ready. Just make sure to take it. You know, don't forget about it. But it is just available all week. And it reviews all the previous material in the class. So if I move back up to section 1, here's a bunch of lecture videos and some suggested, like watch this one in week 1, watch this one in week 2, watch this one in week 3, and then we have our exam. So if I open up the calendar down over here, we're starting up, it's the 18th, right? First week, so lecture 1, complete it by the second class, which is here. So we enter into the second week, watch that lecture video 2. And then we're going and entering the third week here. So watch video 3. And then we terminate the third week, which is why that's where quiz appears, quiz 1 is. And then we move on. Now this starts the 4th week. So you take your quiz and then you move to section 2 and you watch that first selection video. There's 3 for that week. They're shorter based on how they were chopped up. I started getting reviews from students that they didn't like a 1-hour video. They want shorter, like 10 or 20-minute videos. So that's why there's a few videos for this week. And then we get into this week. It looks like there's 2 videos for the second week of section 2. Then we move here. This is the third week of section 2. There's 2 videos. And then we terminate here the end of section 2, and there's a quiz. That's why the quiz is on 3/1, March 1st. And then that starts off the new week, section 3, week 1. And here's the video for that, and so on. Then here's section 3 quiz, section 4 quiz, and then final quiz. Covers all material, and you can take it at any point during finals week. Does that all make sense?
Yes. It makes sense.
Cool. C's programming, the hard. That's exactly right. Right. I just read in the chat panel the hard programming. So the point is that just supposed to be fun and a light introduction to user experience of programming, because yes, we have an issue with students of this age and this programming, and it's not just the school, it's not just this program, it's a tough part of the educational cycle to get into this area, programming. So some people, they've had a lot more training, they got exposed to it in high school, and they're well advanced beyond this. Great for you. And some people always have a natural tendency towards something, and if you're in that you decided to pursue this as your educational goal and you already are naturally attuned to this, that's great. You'll do well. But again, this class is mostly focused on the third population, which is the much larger population. Is that there's a lot of jobs in the tech industry, and a lot of jobs outside the tech industry still require some level of technical ability or programming. And so we need to help acclimate people over to computer programming as much as possible. So that is the only goal of this class. Now I opened up this script because this is my main script for Sprint 1. So I just want to show you, it's about 100 lines long. And in the videos, you'll get introduce all this stuff, but this is like using statements. This is like importing in other code that's already been developed. And all these programmers in Unity have defined all this stuff. And it's super, well, the systems libraries are actually coming from Microsoft, because C# and .NET is a Microsoft product. These namespaces are coming from Unity. And then I just wanted to show you that. The program I'm in right now is Visual Studio. So if I click over here, this little icon is Unity Hub. And this is probably the first thing you're going to download. And if you haven't done it, this is the best Unity version to use with this class. Now it's like 2 or 3 years old at this point. 2018 doesn't mean it was. Usually it's like a year off. So this is like a 2019 product. So it's about 3 years old, but nothing major has changed. It's just like the interface looks different, and there's a lot of like just little nuances that have changed in Unity 2022 compared to this version, which is when I first developed this project. So to make your life very easy in this class, stay regular. whatever the weekly video is, get it done, and don't just like listen to it and watch it. So this passive learning, the reason that this is a project-oriented class is because passive learning really doesn't work in technology fields. You could sit there with a textbook, you could sit there and listen to videos or listen to a lecture live, and like 90% of the information is just not going to be retained because you have to do it. So that is why I am just building stuff in the class. So once in a while, every semester, I get someone saying, well, I don't really get this because you're just demoing something. You're just demoing Unity, or like, no, I'm building something. You have to build something. Like usually it's like, oh, let's build a calculator or a clock app, or let's build a website. You have to like wrap your head around some type of project. And you have to like it's like a craft. You have to get your hands dirty. It's all about experience. So I build a painting app in a development environment called Unity to teach programming and user experience design. And if you don't do the diagrams as I do them, if you don't build the painting app as I build it, it doesn't need to be the same. It doesn't need to be as sophisticated. Things can look wonky or ugly, or things don't work well. But as long as you get the ideas and you built something, you're good. You're golden. You'll do completely fine in the quizzes. I'm not trying to trip you up. It's the way the world works in the tech industry. You have to build stuff. So just follow with me, download this version of Unity because the videos were recorded in that. And there won't be any weird like gotchas, the interface won't be different. It'll function exactly as it does in my videos. And you'll have, easier time just getting through the class. And if you're super into Unity game development, you want to check specialization, whatever, then you like go get the latest Unity. And we always have this issue where you always need the latest and greatest. You need the most highest end computer. You need the highest end software and hardware. It's like, you could get a lot done, 90%, 95% done with something that's over. You don't need the best to learn. So down the road, you're going to join the game classes. You'll probably use the most recent version of Unity, but it's okay if you're on an older laptop, and it's okay if you're using a slightly older version of Unity. Make your life easy and just use this version. When you install it, this is what Unity looks like. And when you install it, there'll be a little pop-up, and all of this is covered in my videos. There'll be a little pop-up that says, do you wish to install Visual Studio? So Visual Studio is Microsoft's development environment. You can develop programs in many different computer languages, but here we are using C#, and the reason Visual Studio comes along with Unity is that there's a little plugin. That should get installed automatically for you. And if I open up this window, notice it says here that external script editor is Visual Studio. And the beauty with that is as I type something, so these are what are called variables. I'm saying I want a public variable of type game object. Notice how I'm getting this filled out for me, and I can just select it. Be like, oh yes, that's the variable type I meant. I can just press the enter key. So I get access to this IntelliSense, or the fact that the development environment tries to help me out. And the only reason that happens is because Unity installed this little plugin in Visual Studio. Now, I always get a few students who are, for whatever reason, nothing works 100% of the time. There's always issues. This connection didn't happen. So just come into class time and I'll troubleshoot and fix your Unity in Visual Studio. Now, Yeah, go for it.
Oh, yeah, I have a question actually. I use Visual Studio Code, which is like also a Windows
Yeah, you could. That's fine.
environment. Does that also connect perfectly?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But you can do so. The actual plugin, if you want to manually do it, it's like Studio Unity. Yeah, Unity Game Development Tools. This is the actual plugin. After you can actually manually just like download it and connect it. But this is the plugin for Visual Studio. I don't Visual Studio Code. Yeah, okay. It's a great companion. All the C# stuff is supported. Yeah, it looks like you can.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Follow this, and if it doesn't connect up, just come into class, and we'll. Yeah, it could add fours. Yeah, it should connect up fine.
All right, thank you.
Yep. There's other development environments. Visual Studio Code's a lighter weight one. There's a ton dealing with like JavaScript and Python, and your other classes. I'm sure other professors are pushing other ones. It's okay. Get exposed. I can tell you that the more that exposure you get before you enter industry, the better off you'll be. And then whatever your job is, that's like the stuff that you end up learning and getting really comfortable with. Just get exposed and push yourself outside comfort zone. In either case, class is coming in to see me when you need help. So it can be things like tech help. It could be things like I don't understand this class, or it could be things like I'm having issues in the semester, whatever. But usually it's stuff like I have issues with Unity, I have issues with Visual Studio. My computer it went down, something broke. Oh, always make backups of everything. There's always students where their computers died during the semester. Google Drive is unlimited storage size for NJT. Make use of it. But class time is like, I don't understand coding principles. I don't understand variables. I didn't understand what you were saying here. My code is making an error. So if I go in, let me see what. So this Unity scene is, so over here, you have these objects that are composed together to make your actual program. In this case, this is my main script here. So it looks like I'm using script 4 here. So if I just do something like, I don't know, I'm just going to type that in and notice that it's red. And it's basically saying there's an error, something's wrong here. So Visual Studio will do one set of like error checking to let you know if there's some issues. But if I save this, I just press the S key because I just entered something new in. I go back to Unity, let it compile. So every time you save your scripts out, you jump back, it like compiles into Unity. I have errors. I can't click play. Fix your errors before you enter play mode. So play mode is like testing. It's like testing in the editor before you build. So whether you make iPhone apps or websites or video games, usually your development environment has some type of testing situation. Try out your app in some type of editor way before you go through all the pain of building it and then finding out you have issues. So this is saying you have errors in your code at this line. So I could double click there, jump over here. It's saying the errors here, but it's really the line above that's just bad. So we'll learn all about coding conventions, syntax and semantics, and how to handle the coding language. But if I save and go back and let it compile again, clear this out, we have no errors, and we can play. So there's a lot of back and forth between Unity and Visual Studio. Now, that's what students come. I don't understand what's happening, either here in Unity or in Visual Studio, and we have one-on-one time or small group time. Attendance is optional. Some students are self-guided. Some students can just watch the videos, do the projects. I get it. I'm going to go take the quiz, and I'll never see them again. Some students need a lot of help, and some students just jump in as they need to. So when you need help, you jump in. So as the semester progresses, I don't know if will be turned back into live instruction. If that's the case, I'm pretty sure the room, it's GITC 3200, whatever. If we get to that, we get to that. That's where the mixer lab is. That's the group of faculty I work with. And there's a teaching lab. But, you know, if that happens, you'll obviously be well aware. Even if we move back to live instruction, attendance is still optional, and I will still run a WebEx. Meaning that right now, attendance is optional. If you completely understand what's happening that week, you do not need to come to class. If you need to come to class, this is it. It's WebEx. Later on in the semester, if things move back to live, the same policies are in place. If you did your work, you did the lecture video, you did the project work that I did, which means you listened, you paused the video, you did the work, no issues, then you do not need to come to class. You're always welcome to come if you have any questions, but you don't need to. Now, once we move to live, you have the choice. You can come visit me in the classroom, or you can come back into WebEx, because I'll just be running online as I'm in the classroom. So does that make sense?
Wait, so it's still going to be like via WebEx for the lecture? Well, for this type of
Yep.
setup.
And I don't anticipate us going back in, but if we do, I'll be there, but I'll have my computer turned on and I'll have WebEx on. So I'll be there, and if you wish to, you can come. But you will always have the option to come into WebEx. I'll always have this web conference live during class time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's lecture 1. I use a diagramming tool. It's free. It's actually, I go through how to get it. You can just get it on the drive. But it's this diagrammings.net. So I go through, you connect more apps, and you go find this diagramming tool, and you'll download it or connect it, I guess is the term. But then you'll have access to this. If you've already been exposed to diagrams, and you already have a preferred tool, then you can use that. I just need to always have some, I always have to do a free option. And this tool gets across, actually I've switched over to another free tool, I don't need, but it's all right. This one still gets across well. So basically you can drag shapes in, you can represent flows of your application. These shapes mean different things, and I get into what that means. But the point is that that you're expressing your ideas in a way that like gets you to think about your software. You're not supposed to just jump in and code. You have to think about design. So I do this thing. It's part of the video. It's called cognitive walkthrough, and it's like you, the user, use a program, and you think about the steps you're doing with the user interface, and you're thinking how you're interacting with the computer. And that's second. IT201. Sprint documents. Right. So here's like the sprint one. This is like the user flows for sprint one. This is our painting flow, our change of primitive flow, our change of color flow. And I map out how the user goes back and forth and interacts with the computer to do something. And then from there, we can think about how to write the code for that. It's just small little steps. So it's very easy to think about what's happening so that when you program, you're not overwhelmed. There's a problem solving solution strategy is how to like reduce complexity by breaking problems down into smaller problems and then evaluating those problems. So all this is on the videos, and you come in and you can come in optionally. That's the interactive part of the classes. Come in and talk to me. And if you want to just come in, you want to talk about diagramming or user experience or programming. Usually the big hang up is you're going to have errors as you're typing out the code. You're not understanding what's happening. And this is where there's about, I'll have you share your screen and I'll explain to you why the errors are. Everybody gets hung up on something different, so it's that interactive time is come in. Let me address your issues directly. And I don't use that time for lecture because I just lecture on the same thing over and over again. I just ended up recording it. And then I use class time for problem solving, for project fixing. So what you need to do is download Unity, which will also install Visual Studio. You need to watch this video. The first week, we actually don't really touch Unity, but just install it and make sure if there's any issues or something, come in, and you can come in next week and we can start to fix them. And then these weeks here, we start to get into a bit of Unity. All right, but this week, it's really just this diagramming tool.
Professor, I have a question.
Yep.
So you're basically saying we'll watch the lecture videos on our own time, and then whenever we go to class, in our time period to meet up with you, it's basically just questions and stuff.
Yeah, it's a follow up on the previous week.
All right, cool, thank you. So I guess today would be lecture 1.
Yeah. So the way that the rest of the semester goes is watch a lecture, and then if you're stuck or you need to see me about something, you come in and you solve all your problems, and then you're allowed to move on. Come in, solve all your problems, and move on, and then take the quiz. And then repeat, and then repeat, and repeat, and repeat.
Is the quiz a week after lecture 3? Is that how that works?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So we are starting off. So if I open up the calendar, you see this calendar?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. So we're here. You watch lecture video 1, come in if need to. Watch lecture video 2, come in if need to. Watch lecture video 3 and take the quiz. And then move on to section 2 and watch lecture series 1. There's a few videos. And then if I move down here, this is week 1 of section 2. Come in if you need to. Come to week 2 of section 2. Come in if you need to. Week 3 of section 2 and take the quiz. And then repeat.
I see. So for section 5, we'll be doing 2 modules per week. Or for section 2, I'm sorry, I didn't mean section 5.
Oh, yeah. So I started to break up the videos into maybe 20 or 30 minutes because the students are having issues with an hour and a half videos. So that's just, there might be more videos. The amount of time is the same.
All right, cool.
It's just the videos are broken up. And if you want to see, I've developed a website for the class. So this kind of is the syllabus the syllabus is also on Canvas, but this is basically the syllabus, how I break up the class. See, it used to be like this with the sprints and the projects, but I then divided this up into the quiz sections. Anyway, sprint 1, we're going to do this. Sprint 2, we do that. Sprint 3, we're going to do this. And I kind of showed you what the apps look like in Unity. It's just me explaining each week material and then showing the flow diagrams of the features that we're working on for that part of the class. And sprint 4 we don't even get to, but I left it up. You know, if you wish to look at it, here's the website. There's sprint 4. So here's a little bit different way to go through the class, but all the materials there and it's the same. But some people like looking at this layout. But all the weekly videos are laid out with links to YouTube. All right.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
Cool. You're free to head out. Is there any big general questions you need to ask at this point? You want?
We only meet once a week, right?
Right. Correct. Tuesday, 1 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
And no matter if we come back in person or not, this format right here is going to always be via WebEx, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Those are my dominant format, Canvas and WebEx. If we do go back in live, I'll go in and you're free to come to the classroom, but this WebEx is always like, usually students prefer this. So this is on whether I'm in class or not. And if you want to, you can hang out. I'm going to stop recording. If sometimes people want a more private situation, but I'm going to stop recording.
Project itself.
Yeah.
Just really quickly. I saw your example, but is it okay for us to just make our own twist to it?
Absolutely.
Like,
I prefer that.
Okay, so you do prefer that.
So that's the other reason I moved off of the project deliverables. That a lot of students who actually were doing the deliverables wanted to do their own thing. And the project structure was a little bit rigid where I couldn't really grade your own thing. I was grading on the features I was doing. So you have to get your hands dirty. You got to dive into Unity, into diagramming, into C#. Now, if you could just do what I do and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. I want to try making a twist on it. I want to do something else. That's completely fine. I want you to grow and learn. But definitely watch the videos, at least do what I do and be like, oh, okay, I can take this quiz. So I'm going to go try something else. That's fine.
Got it. All right. Thank you so much, Professor. Have a good day.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Professor. Have a nice weekend.
Yeah, you too. And I'm going to stop recording in case somebody needs to talk about something that they're not comfortable being recorded.
Alrighty, take care.